I'm delighted to be joined by three amazing people who I'm sure many of you will have met before. Hello to Wendy Mitchell. Hi, Wendy. And Chris Roberts and Jayne Goodrick. Hi. Hello.
Hi. Good to be here. We've had to come on the same device because of internet access problems. We're on a campsite in the middle of Somerset somewhere.
That's brilliant. I'm very envious, although it's sunny in Oxfordshire as well. Wendy, you're muted. I don't know if you've noticed. You might just need to unmute yourself. That's okay.
That won't do, will it? Well, you probably would.
I can guarantee, Wendy, you won't be the first person I say that to today. Almost.
It's the phrase of 2020. You're on mute.
Oh, lovely to see you, Jayne and Chris.
Good to see you. You're looking fabulous, Wendy.
Oh, so are you. It's lovely to see you.
I know. I always enjoy looking at your pictures, your photographs you take on social media, Wendy. Your pictures from around the town.
Yeah, they keep me going.
They keep us all going.
It gives you something to do, doesn't it? It gives you focus.
It does. Yeah, absolutely. That's what's got me through this strange time.
Yeah. I kind of picked on you three particularly because I thought, first of all, it'd be nice to see three friendly faces during the first half an hour when I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to be saying.
Yeah, you're looking very fresh at the moment, Adam.
Am I? Well, I don't know why. I've got a special T-shirt. Look.
Oh, wonderful.
Special T-shirt made a sign.
I noticed the sign.
So I thought I'd definitely want three friendly faces of people I know and worked with before as well to join me in the first sessions. And it's funny because I was worried that I won't have time to fill the whole half an hour. And then I realized half an hour is not that long when you've got so many people to talk to, actually. So we'll be good. And of course, raising money for Alzheimer's Research UK as well. I'm going to reorganize my things. I'm going to come to you first, Chris and Jayne, actually, cracking on. So I know I've seen you speak at various research conferences, and I know from my work that you're champions for joint dementia research as well. At what point did kind of research even come into your mind? Obviously, for anybody who, I actually know. Do you know what? I forgot to ask you to introduce yourselves. Could I maybe come to you both first?
I'm Jayne. I'm Chris's wife. I've been given a label of carer, but he cares for me probably far more than I care for him.
Yeah.
And my name's Chris Roberts, and I've got mixed dementia because I'm greedy.
And I'm Wendy Mitchell.
When Chris first had a diagnosis, though.
Sorry, you go.
Go on.
No, it was me. It was me.
No.
I was just jumping into the.
No, you finish your introduction. That would be great.
Yeah. So when Chris was first diagnosed, we were left in a state of hopelessness because the delivery of the diagnosis left us with no hope. It was more or less go home, fill the LPA, do the will. But what did give us hope was Chris became involved in a research project, and that's where we first found hope.
And I realised that I had this image in my head when research was mentioned of almost like Frankenstein and been strapped onto a bed and taking parts of my brain, and and I thought, no, that's not happening. And it's
you haven't done that yet.
Being involved in this project. No, they haven't. What I've got, I'm hanging on to.
I don't blame you. What about? Why can I ask you to introduce yourself as well, Wendy?
I'm Wendy Mitchell. I've got mixed dementia too, although I only found that out by looking over the consultant's notes, because they told me I had Alzheimer's, and then one day I looked over the consultant's notes and it said mixed dementia, and I said, why has nobody told me that bit? Don't you think it might help me a little bit? Anyway, so I was diagnosed 5 or 6 years ago, something like that. And as Chris said, you're given no hope whatsoever. Yeah, the the way diagnosis is medicalized, you just have all the negatives thrown at you and no hope whatsoever. And I wanted to be involved in research from the start because I saw that as the chink of hope, just as Chris said. Because you have to have something to cling on to when at the beginning you know nothing else. And just being involved in research just made me feel valued again and gave me that sense of, yes, I still have something to give here. And so that's how I started to be involved in research and have continued ever since, just like my lovely friends.
And when I found out that research didn't involve people being invasive and stealing your body parts, and that a lot of projects are just filling in surveys and questions and assisting that way, then I realised that that's something that I could do, and I could do quite well, because I could take my time, and it really does make you feel, like Wendy says, it makes you feel like you've achieved something and you're helping yourself, other people.
Yeah, I think social and technological research is equally important as medical, clinical research. You know, we have to find the best ways to live for those of us living with it now. And we have to find the best ways to care for those who can no longer care for themselves. And, you know, the technology is, I didn't use technology before dementia. So, you know, don't give up hope of learning technology just because you're diagnosed with dementia. Because everything I've learned since being diagnosed. I never had an iPad before dementia came into my life, and now it's sort of an extra appendage on me.
I've got one of them.
An
iPad.
Yours is called Jane.
An iPad. Terrible people. But we can't. If we can do this, then and join in and help after a diagnosis, then anyone can, and everyone should be doing that. And I didn't realise at first that research also wants not people just diagnosed with dementia, but also healthy brains. For comparatives and stuff like that. So this is why we need money for research, and all the money at the moment's disappeared because of this horrible time we're in.
Yeah.
So now you're back at work. Give us the money.
That's right. Absolutely spot on.
Now more than ever, I mean, the big pharmas are all concentrated on going for the cure, the holy grail. As Chris often says, which one do you cure? There are so many different types of dementia. And as Wendy alluded to, the psychosocial research is enabling us to live to the best that we can whilst we can. Because the holy grail cure will not come in time for best benefit for Chris and Wendy and everybody else out there like them. And it is extremely important, but there's all the other pieces of research in between that enable us to carry on, to enable us to learn how to use the iPads and the technology, which has been absolutely, completely invaluable during this last 4-6 months, because the way the pandemic has affected people of dementia has been exponentially overburdensome. But this at least has given people with dementia hope and been able to reconnect. And also we've taken part in research during the lockdown by having these the iPads and things.
Yeah.
I think the motivations for people to participate in research vary. They're very personal, of course. Some people are, but what was interesting, I've been collaborating recently with various international registers, because of course, in the UK we have Joint Dementia Research, and in the US they have lots, including Trial Match, and in Australia they have Step Up. And it was really interesting to find that there were so many commonalities across those, in so much as people's motivation to participate in studies is often in the first few months, particularly when they look at people who sign up, how quickly is it if they participate? So if they're going to do something, it's really at the start. I don't know if that's what you found. I mean, you found it quickly. Does that because it just becomes harder as time goes on, do you think?
Well, I don't think so. I belong to my peer support group is York Minds and Voices, and when I asked all them who wants to take part in research, no one put their hand up. And then I asked them who wants to change the way dementia looks in the future. Everyone put their hand up. You know, so it's getting an understanding of what research is to people that is key. And if only that happened early on for many people, because not everyone is like us and embraces it.
No.
You know, other people just don't, it's not, you know, they think they're not, it's not for them, it doesn't happen to them. So if only research was normalized in the clinical world for people with dementia, just like it is for cancer, then, you know, more people would understand the benefits and the what they can do for future generations and for themselves by taking part.
So one of the key messages for the 56 researchers I'm talking to over the next 11 and a half hours then is to, I don't know, do you think it's just to get better at explaining this? I mean, and to also encourage more people like you, I think, that do understand that it's not taking bits of your brain away, that to you know, getting those stories out there and better sharing what research really is from real people who've done it, not you know, somebody in a tie somewhere. Does that make sense, do you think?
But you don't know, you don't know, Adam, what you don't know. So unless someone informs you and gives you information about how long it's going to take and get rid of all those misconceptions that you might have about research, and that it's not going to take you a great deal of time, it might just be 10 minutes a month even, then that will change people's minds. Then I think they need to have more information about how long it's going to last and how much input that they are going to have to do. They're not bothered about anything else. It's that is the most off-putting thing, because you then make it up in your head and you think, I haven't got the time.
I think also what you said about around the world, that you find with all the different projects, that people are people. The best time to get people involved is earlier on in their diagnosis. Because that's when, if you've been diagnosed with anything, that's when you're more likely to find out more about it. What is it? What does it mean? How can I get involved? What can I do about it? And a lot of the delivery of the diagnosis just leaves you hopeless. There is nothing you can do now. Go home and don't do this, don't do that, don't the other. And when Chris was working with the Welsh Government around the Wales Dementia Action Plan, he insisted that research be put in there, and they have made a commitment to research. Now, obviously, at the moment, all the funding's gone, you know, up in the air, but we need the commitments from the policymakers to get this research. It is really important that at point of delivery, or even beforehand, the people doing the assessments, the clinicians, are prepared to talk about research, are prepared to say, would you be interested? Do you think this might help? Because if nothing else, if you don't get a diagnosis of dementia at the end of it, you obviously have some cognition problems to be going through that process. If you get a diagnosis, then there is a whole world of research opportunities open to you. If you don't have a diagnosis, then research into, well, what has caused these problems. So although we're concentrating on dementia here, it's across the whole spectrum. The sooner people are introduced to the fact that they can be involved in whichever way, the more likely, the more invested they're going to be in that research.
Yes, normalizing talking about research, you know, make it normal. But also, I think the academics need to leave all the academia inside their world and bring normal language and normal talking into our world. You know, because lots of people are put off by the academic sounding of things, and they think, oh, I'm not clever enough to do this.
The big words.
Yeah.
the iteration of a project.
That's right. Whatever that means. So just use normal language.
And that's why I think, well, why joined, I mean, this isn't an advert for Joint Dementia Research, but that's why that came about in the first place, was exactly that reason, because there were so many. The first thing people often do when they go away from getting their diagnosis is, whether it's themselves or, you know, family members, is Googling.
Yeah.
You know, they're out there Googling to try and find out what treatment options there are, how is the disease going to progress, what should they expect.
But surely, Adam, you before this, you should be told all this. You shouldn't have to go and Google it. You shouldn't have to look for it, you know. And I would love to have heard more about research and what help I could be, even though I thought it was the end of my life and I was on the scrap heap. I'd love to have known earlier. I could have started earlier.
I found out that when I saw the consultant in the memory clinic, I found out after he discharged me that research was going on at that clinic. So I wrote to him and said, why didn't you tell me? And he just said, oh, well, I didn't think you'd want the burden of research when you'd just been diagnosed.
You know, that's exactly, that's a number of people I've spoken to that make that judgment call to say, oh, I don't think this person is right, or I do think that person is right. It's for
me to decide that I want to take him. Yeah.
I mean, I in the NHS's defence, to some extent, I know that services are busy and finding time to take that. But in which case, I think that there are other ways to deliver that conversation. You can shift that afterwards. Or I know some trusts are really good at this. I've been working with Lancashire Care Trust over the last few years, and I know that they're really good at this. They set somebody to one side. They have a volunteer who has this conversation, so it's not taking up nurse time or doctor time. That, you know, they have somebody who knows all about this. They've got a big list of all the studies going on in the area at that time. They talk about joint dementia research as well. I've got
they always put barriers in the way instead of thinking of the solutions. You know, they always sorry.
One of my favourite.
I'm going to remind everybody watching that they can ask questions, and then just before the end, I'll put all these questions to Chris, Jayne and Wendy. So you can post your questions in the YouTube feed or in Zoom, or using hashtag Chatathon if you're listening on Periscope or all these various channels. I'm going to put some questions to you. First of all, we've got just a comment from Rachel Daly, who is also one of our researchers, who's going to be joining us later today to talk about her work at Dementia UK. She says, this is really helpful, Wendy. Thank you all very much. We all need to be better at that. So I will keep reiterating that message for you, Wendy. Thank you for that point, Rachel. Erin Partridge asks, what words draw you into participating and what turn you off? Go on, Chris and Jayne first.
Right, the worst words are ones I don't understand. Don't forget, I've no health training, no ground in research or clinical etiquette, and to use words that I won't understand, I'm turned off immediately.
One of the things I noticed, as Wendy said before, not being offered research at the clinic. When Chris received his diagnosis, we were prepared, you know, we knew what was coming. And I said, so what happens next? Nothing. All we got from the consultant was, well, you'll see me when you're 65. That's where she could have said, well, you could become involved in research. You could, would you be interested? would you be interested in changing the future of dementia?
Would you like to help yourself?
Yeah.
Those words.
I think making research a standard part of the care pathway. The tricky thing here is I think not every trust is doing research. I mean, there are lots of trusts across the country that aren't really doing much, and if they're not doing much, their interest in promoting it when it's not a study taking place there. I don't know if that's something that just doesn't then come up, but it should be a part of the care pathway. And if that trust isn't doing research, then almost certainly that somebody at the local university will, whether that's a PhD student or the neighbouring trust will, and sharing that. I'm gonna try and get through these questions.
If the trust isn't doing research, they should still be invested in the patients within their trust, and to give them the opportunity to do something about their condition.
Absolutely, I completely agree. Next question was from Claire Hannah, who asks, there's a difficulty in sharing enough information without overloading on a first conversation. How do people living with dementia want us to try and get around that? Go on, Wendy, maybe I'll put that to you.
Very simply, just tell me very simply what you aim to do.
Yeah.
I don't need to know all the technicalities and the other stuff. What do you want to do, and how can I help you?
And this is the one that would have given us hope.
Yeah.
If they'd have said, you can be involved in something going forward, you can be involved in research, would you like the information? That's all they have to do.
Sign me up.
That would have given us that glimmer of hope in what they left us in, a hopeless situation. And the situation did not need to be hopeless.
We don't need it. I do understand about information overload, because it really affects someone. It affects me anyway. But why can't to make it accessible, to put all the items that they want to get over in a bullet point, and it's so much quicker than giving us 36 leaflets, 36 pages, 50 pages.
I agree with both of you. And also as well, there is a lot of information to share, but I think that message about research is probably as important as all the other messages. I think
the key is to be succinct. And academics sometimes have a problem being succinct because they're so used to having to write reams and reams of things.
Short.
Absolutely.
So sorry, Chris.
I think
I've got some more questions, which I'm keen, because I know our next guests are going to be arriving in 2 minutes' time. I was worried that the time would take ages. This has flown by. Sandra Burley asks, how can we effectively share research locally? Give me one example, Chris and Jane. How have you promoted research in your communities? Just one quick example.
Social media.
Facebook particularly, though, I think for people with dementia more than Twitter.
Every town, city and village in the country, most of them now have their own Facebook page. You know, I live in a little place called Riverland, which people have never heard of, and we've got our own community Facebook group. And it takes seconds. Wendy does it on Twitter.
I'm going to come back to my next question. Linda Baker asks, I'd like to ask her about research into PCA. Linda, join later on today. PCA will come up several times. If you have a look in the programme, there is a specific session, I think, on PCA. Chris Norris makes the point that lots of money being spent on Alzheimer's, but needs to make other dementias as important too. I think, Chris, you'd advocate for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so many others out there. Alzheimer's is just the one that's more relative to most people, but there's so many dementias out there, and especially the rarer ones. You know, PICS, FTD, and
absolutely.
PCA.
UCL, where I work, is great.
It's not all about Alzheimer's.
No.
Not at all. So coming back again, last question, Rachel Daly asks, should we simplify patient participation sheets? I think you'd say yes to that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And put a picture on. Have a smiley face of the researcher on every information sheet. You don't just want words. You want to see a smiley face that is welcoming and that you want to help them.
Absolutely. Thank you very much,
and
Wendy.
I think the biggest, I forgot now.
I was just going to say thank you very much, Wendy Mitchell, Chris Roberts and Jayne Goodrick for joining. Honestly, we could talk all day. We've done podcasts. Go to the Dementia Researcher podcast. There's an hour-long podcast talking about exactly this subject. 2 half-hour sessions with Hilary Doxford as well.
But Adam, the thing I hear the most is we can't find them.
We're here.
When you've got an organisation like Deep who facilitate the setting up of groups, and you've got a working group across the 3 nations, we are there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we want to thank all the researchers for giving us that hope and ultimately one day giving us a better life. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
We can't do it without you.
Thank you, Jayne.
Yeah.
And I'll speak to you all again soon. Thank you all.